Welcome to the Base Coat Brainiac podcast. My name is Austin Hauser. I am Chief Brainiac over at Base Coat Marketing. If you own a painting business and you're listening in, you're in the right place. So today I have the Canadian Stallion, the guy with two last names, the mastermind behind Painter Growth, Mike Gore-Hickman. Thanks for being here, man.
Thanks for having me, Austin. Man, your intro is so legit.
Well, look, I mean, we got to invest the time in these kind of things, right? It's for the fans. So, Mike, before we get too far into the weeds discussing a topic that was brought up by one of our clients, but arguably I think affects every one of our clients in some capacity, I'd like to start with you. So, Mike, tell us your story, man. Where'd you come from? How'd you get here today? Let's start with you.
Cool. You mentioned two last names, so I'll touch on that briefly. People are like, oh, is your wife's name Gore and your last name was Hickman and you merged it? My last name was actually hyphenated in 1812 in Ireland. We found the original documents, and there was two family farms, and one was dying without an heir, and so they ended up merging and amalgamating assets, and it was the only condition that they merged the name. So it was one of the first hyphenated names in Ireland.
I am so glad we got to the bottom of that because I've been wondering that this entire time. I just assumed it was the wife thing.
And now you have your short social promo content.
Here we go. Perfect. I love it.
Yeah. So I got into painting in a different way than most. I'm not a painter through and through. I was actually a business student, and I got recruited by a student painting company, right? As there's now many, people like me who have. This was about a decade ago. And that really introduced me into the whole painting world. And I became obsessed and absolutely in love with it. Went all in on my painting company. By the time I was about 23 years old, we were doing just shy of $200,000 per month in production. It was not a perfectly well-oiled machine, but it was pretty good. I had time freedom. We're making a ton of money. And then I was going to keep that going. But my girlfriend at the time got a job in a different city, in a different province, state for Americans. And I decided to shut down my business and follow her. And so it turned out to be a good idea. Now we're married and have two kids. So, trade off. It was definitely a good choice. From there, I got an opportunity to work online, really, in the, around 2015 or something like that. And I got to be a part of a really fast growing software startup. Went from 0 to about 10 million a year in 3 years. I led the sales team there. And from there, spun off my company now, paintergrowth.com. I had an opportunity to get back into painting and trying to ride this wave and support the wave of really leveling up the industry with the likes of, Nick Slavic and Jason Paris and all these other awesome people, just ripe for disruption. And I feel like I'm here at the right time.
So good. So you started with the painting company. You have the experience, the firsthand experience of what it takes to actually run a company like that. And now you have a service, a program that helps other painting company owners grow their company. Is that correct?
Yes. We did do a little foray into the digital marketing realm. And then we did digital marketing with a little side of coaching. And then we did basically digital marketing with a big side of coaching, and then coaching with the side of digital marketing. And then earlier this year, we completely sunsetted our digital marketing department, and we are all in on coaching painting contractors everywhere from startup to 3 million plus a year.
So good. All right. So the topic that I wanted to discuss today was actually brought up by one of our clients. And as I mentioned, I'm fairly confident, whether it's recognized or not, most of our clients are struggling in this area, and that is sales. Now, because you have firsthand experience and you obviously train other painting business owners on this exact topic, I felt like this would be a good one to go an inch wide and a mile deep on. So let's get into the weeds. Let's propose I own a painting business. I do not. But let's say I have a coachable personality and I need to know whether or not my sales process is even broken to begin with. So where do we start? Are we looking at close ratios? Paint the picture here.
For sure. So close ratios are important. They're a very good leading indicator that will help you determine whether or not your sales process is doing good or not. But it's not the only indicator, right? If your sales ratio is really high, that doesn't necessarily mean you have a good business. You also need to look at your gross margin on your projects. And so if you have a solid sales rate and you're operating at a 50% gross margin, then I would say that's a successful sales system. Now, if you are operating at less than a 20% sales rate, but you have a really high gross margin, like a 60% gross margin, well, maybe pricing is an issue, right? So maybe we need to diagnose that. I get asked a lot, like, what is a good sales rate? Like, where should my sales rate be? It depends a little bit. If it's like an inbound, like a referral, like a friend or family member, or a recommendation, those will typically close, higher 70, 80% at decent margins. But if you're talking a Facebook lead or a Google ad lead or something like that, try to get my clients to be around kind of between 40 and 45% closing rate while maintaining good, decent margins.
Yeah. So that's a great breakdown of the channel that you're acquiring these leads from and ultimately the variance of those close ratios. I cannot tell you how many clients we've had who have come to us with a very successful painting business built on mostly referral based traffic, right? And they're used to that 70% close rate. And we have to literally train them that, hey, that is not to be expected in a real world advertising scenario. They're much colder leads, maybe slightly warm, but they do require nurturing. So let's talk about what that looks like on your end. I know you have a process and a program in place. So where do you start on that side of things?
So I think what you want to do is start what the perfect sales process looks like, and not necessarily aspire to do everything, but aspire to do as much of it as possible, because it's not a game where it has to be done perfectly for it to be successful. But the more things that you do right, the higher your overall success is going to be. A real, a true like perfect sales system. I actually wrote it out before this just so I could have like a visual of it. I have like 14 points with like sub points in each one. And like that, like I'm saying, you don't have to do it perfectly in order to have a high close rate, but you should be trying to do most of the things, decently well. And if you do, you'll definitely notice an uptick in sales. The biggest shift that I see that most contractors need to make when deciding to professionalize, and I'm sure you talk about this on some of your internal calls with your clients, everyone talks about this, but still some people don't do it, is the difference between looking at it as an estimate versus looking at it as a sales opportunity. And if you're doing if you frame it in your mind as an estimate, what you're telling yourself is that you're going there to give the client a price or to email them the price later, and having them use that as their only decision criteria. And if you are just relying on price to close a job, you're going to get underbid. You're going to get undercut, right? There's going to be undocumented workers coming in for a quarter of your price, or the unlicensed companies coming in and just like taking all of those bids. But as soon as you shift to value sales, like providing value and looking at it as a sales presentation, now your opportunity to close these jobs at higher and higher sales rates exponentially increase. So number one shift that you need to make is not to do your numbers at home and email or text the client the price, right? The number one shift you need to make is go to your truck, go to your van, even if it takes you 30, 45 minutes to get your numbers, do the numbers right there and go back in and present your proposal to the client. If you just make that one shift with no other sales tactics, you will close way more work. I promise.
Totally. Yeah. And I think you brought up a good point, is book rate versus close rate. And ultimately looking at that is not book rate. You're not necessarily trying to book an estimate. You're trying to book a sale. And I think that's where a lot of guys look at this and they're like, oh, okay, well, my book rate's X and my sales rate's, Y. Where's the breakdown happening here? And, the contrast of lead quality versus sales process issues, I feel like is also a very fine line. We have some guys who are closing 70% on Facebook, and I would argue it's not their market, but it's because of their sales process. So what does that look like on your end? I know you have a bulleted list. What's point number one, and how does that tie into all of this?
So point number one is, as soon as you generate a new lead, as soon as a new lead comes in from any source, it's an email, it's a referral, it's a Google ad, it's from one of your marketers. We teach a lot on how to do kind of like grassroots marketing that don't necessarily involve online channels. So whatever source it comes from, it should be inputted into your CRM. You don't have a CRM. Oh boy.
Go get one.
Anyway, I'll assume you have a CRM at this point. It gets inputted into your CRM, and that client should get an immediate text message and email notification saying that basically the lead was received, and that they should be expecting a call shortly. Okay. This is like that instant gratification. Personally, I've had calling different tradespeople that I need, when I need work on my house, and I'll call through like 5 people. And if I get a voicemail I'm just moving on to the next one.
Totally.
But if I get a voicemail, but then immediately I get a text that says, hey, we're going to call you back shortly. Like, okay, maybe I don't need to call the next one. So it gives you a chance.
Time to lead. And I completely agree with that. We try to get our clients' time to lead down under 30 seconds on the phone. If we can get a text message, outbound message there, that's just as good in my opinion. Continue.
So I say, oh yeah, almost as good. Yeah. You do that. Yeah. The instant one, because then that kind of increases the speed to lead that you need. I say to 5 minutes. Then you have 5 minutes to get back to them.
Yep.
Right now, within those 5 minutes, you call that lead. Now, I'm all about systems, making things easy and getting things out of your head. If you have to remember to like check your email in order to get your leads, you're never going to hit that. It's not going to be attainable. So what you need to learn how to do is set up like really simple automations so that when a lead comes in, you get a text message and then you can call that lead right away. They're very easy to set up. If you go to Zapier.com, Zapier.com, you can get a free account and you can hook any CRM to something called SMS by Zapier. And that means as soon as you get a new lead, you can put in your phone number and it'll send you a text message with the lead information and you can just call it. It's completely free to do. It'll take you maybe 15 minutes to learn and do it. And then you'll never have to worry about missing another lead.
So good. And I want to quickly plug Drip Jobs at this point. So very similar process. It's all automated and done for you. So for those of you who have not heard of Drip Jobs or checked it out, go jump on that.
Yeah. Drip Jobs definitely the CRM of choice for painting contractors. I would highly recommend them. But then calling the lead, what do you say in this phone call? Do you just like set up a time? Hey, this is Joanne. Okay, you're looking for some painting. Can I come by tomorrow around 12? We'll be there between 12 and 2. You know, no. So always a stickler of like, let's be as efficient. Let's be as on time as we can. Let's be as specific as we can about what we're doing, when we're going to be there, and any other expectations. So what we do on this first call is what I call the lights out setup call. And it is essentially a step-by-step. I have a checklist. I'll show you guys how to get this checklist as well, but exactly what to say on this call so that the homeowner is not just thinking that this is an estimate, but they're thinking that you're coming to book a job, right? So some of the things, and actually was going to pull this up ahead of time. I don't have it in front of me, but you're going to, want things like, are all the decision makers there, or if it's a married couple, is the husband and the wife going to be there? Are you setting the expectation? Are you doing a trial close? Are you fleshing out any objections? Are you getting scope and price and timeline all up front ahead of time so that you are prepared in order to do a successful estimate, and the homeowners are mentally and psychologically prepared to make a decision on the spot, right? The sales process starts right there, not when you get to the customer's house.
So that brings up an important question, and that is pre-qualification. How much pre-qualification do you do on that very first call?
Good question. It depends a little bit on the contractor, and the factors that it will depend on will be like, how busy are you? Like, really, are you still doing sales, but you shouldn't be because you're doing 80K a month? Or are you still like slugging along at 10, 20,000 per month and you need every job you can get? Right. So if you are more in like the more desperate phase, then I would do less qualification and like disqualify fewer. But if you are already scaled up and your time is very, very valuable, then you're going to want to do a lot more qualifications so that you can have a more sure thing when you actually get to the house. Does that make sense?
This is a topic that we've actually brought up on several internal calls with our clients. I'm curious, what kind of pre-qualification questions do you recommend inserting into your sales process once you reach that point of time optimization?
Good question. So I get asked all the time, like, should I give a ballpark price over the phone? If you're talking to the homeowner and it's very clear that they're just price shopping, then I would say, yes, it's okay to give them a price over the phone, because then that gives them a chance to disqualify themselves. The best way that I have found to deal with that and try to like flush out if they're actually price shopping or if they're serious about the job is by doing what I call a trial close on this setup call. And the way that you do a trial close is quite simple. It's all right, Joanne, it's been great talking to you so far today. Now I have you scheduled for our estimate at Wednesday at 9 a.m. When we come out, here's what's going to happen. And what I'm going to do is write up a detailed proposal showing you exactly, what we're going to be doing step by step, all the processes and products. If you feel like you can trust us and the price is within your budget, are you going to be ready to move forward?
Love that.
And so what this does is it gets them to start thinking from I'm getting a quote to now assessing you as like, do I trust this person? So it's like very subtle, but it's a very important shift to make for a homeowner who might have picked up the phone just thinking about a price. But then you ask them that, and they now have to confront this, right? It's like, oh, are we actually, maybe she looks over at her husband. Oh, are we actually thinking about doing this now? It's like, oh, well, yeah, I guess maybe we are. And then they hang up and then they can talk about it. It's like, oh, he's actually coming to book a job. So it gives them more opportunity to have that discussion instead of you like blindsiding them at the estimate, telling them they need to make a decision when they're not mentally ready. That comes across as disrespectful, and we want to avoid that.
Yeah, I think you held two really important points there, and that is one, ensuring you're playing in the same ballpark, right? You don't want to go out and quote a cabinet painting job. They're only willing to spend $1,000 and it's a $8,000 project, right? And the second is the timing and how soon they're looking to get started. And that really helps avoid some of those tire kicker price shoppers who are kind of looking for a general price, and maybe 3 to 6 months from now, they're actually looking to jump in.
Exactly. And if they are only looking for a price, that's totally fine, right? But let's just respect that. Let's follow our process and let's give them the price and just explain the expectation. All right, Joanne, like I can give you an estimate price, but we actually don't come out just to give pricing. We come out when people are serious about actually getting the project done soon. So for this project, it'll be anywhere from like 6 to 10K. And when you're a little bit closer to actually getting the project done, I'll come out and give you a detailed cost for the project. How does that sound?
And the thing that I always love to add to that is it's because prices change. And it's a way that you can describe it to that prospect that they're going to understand is we're in an economy. Everything fluctuates. Prices typically go up. So the prices I quote you today may not be accurate 3 to 6 months from now. And that's a very easy way to close out that call.
Yep. Yeah. Prices change. Quotes are only valid for 30 days. Might change a little, might change a lot. So let's just save everyone some time. I'll give you a ballpark. And when you're serious, call back. And then if you have your stuff together, that's where you put them into a nurture sequence where they get an email every 2 to 4 weeks from you just automatically. And then as soon as they're ready, they'll give you a call.
One of my other favorite pre-qualification questions is asking if they've ever worked with a painting contractor before. And if so, what that experience was like. It really helps you avoid that 2% of crazy, that it's really hard to put a KPI or a static number on that. Where if they're like, yeah, I worked with the guy before, but X, Y, and Z, he didn't show up or he didn't clean up after himself or whatever their unrealistic expectations might be. That's how you kind of sidestep some of those red flags and avoid a pain in the ass client.
Yep. It can highlight red flags, but it can also, that's a very good question to get needs and basically like your ammunition that you need in order to close that job. If they had, hired a contractor, say they hired a roofer who, their only complaint was they left, nails all over the yard. It's like, okay, well, job site cleanliness is important to them, right?
Yep.
Something
so
like
good.
that.
So, all right, we have picked up the phone. We got that prospect to call. We've scheduled an estimate. We've nailed down a time. And I want to actually hammer down on that point one more time, the timing of that. You don't give them a range. You give them a specific time. Now, one pain point of our clients is probably going to be, okay, well, I don't know what traffic's going to be like that day. Or, I have an estimate right before that. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to make it on time. That's why I give a range. How do you combat that?
I think that any reason that someone gives for not being able to make an estimate on time is just an excuse. And you need to develop your own personal responsibility and personal accountability and also set your estimate schedule in a way where you can achieve it. If you're booking your estimates so close together that you don't know if you're going to get out in time, well, don't book them that close together, right? Give yourself that extra 30 minutes. If if you're in LA, and that you have a 45-minute drive 6 blocks away, like, give yourself enough time to get there, set realistic expectations. Maybe you only do one estimate every evening instead of 2. And if you can set up these realistic expectations and then only book estimates within those confines, you're going to be a lot more likely to be successful. Drip jobs, or I like to use Calendly for booking. You can pick exactly what dates and times you want estimates to go. So then if you or your salesperson or your marketer, anyone like that is booking estimates for you, they can only book within those specific parameters. And then as a additional thing that I always do that I love, and it's so over the top, but it's so simple. You're going to set yourself apart by doing this like crazy. If you're on your way to an estimate, say you got them booked for 6:00 and you're driving and you're looking at Google Maps and it's saying you're going to be there at 6:02, call the homeowner and say, hey, I'm running 2 minutes late. Sorry, but I will be there at 6:02. Is that okay? Okay. Oh my gosh, you were going to be 2 minutes late. Don't worry about it. That's totally fine. You didn't have to call. No, it's important to me. I'll see you at 6:02. And then you show up at exactly 6:02 and they're like, wow, that was incredible. And that does more than just let them know you're going to be late, but that shows them that if you respect their time down to the minute, you're going to respect their home.
I like to use the analogy in that exact scenario of going to a restaurant. I always tell my wife, I would rather pay for good service than good food any day. So like you can go get some great food, but if that service sucked, it ruins the whole experience, right? And that is exactly the same point. I love that. So we get out to this house, we're ready to do an estimate. What happens next?
On that last point that you said, I'm just thinking through this right now. And, painting is, I'm talking standard house painting, drywall, trim, doors, cabinets, whatever. Like it's pretty much productized, right? Meaning like a homeowner, it doesn't really know the difference between a good company and bad company. They're just going to hope that the company that shows up is going to do a good job, and the homeowner is paying for a specific outcome, and they're paying for the same outcome from any company. So the only way to differentiate yourself is through service. Like you said, it's like if there's 100 burger joints and every place sold the same burger, well, which one are you going to go to? You're going to go to the one that makes you feel the best when you're there. So how can you make your homeowners feel good throughout their whole process, feel taken care of? There's so many bad experiences with contractors. Don't be another contractor that provides bad experiences to the homeowners. Like, be a good one, be a diamond in the rough, be someone that they can like tell their friends about. I can't believe I had this painter come over and he was 2 minutes late and he called me that he was going to be 2 minutes late. Like, isn't that crazy? Yeah, of course we hired him. Here's his card. You guys should call him too.
Overwhelming customer experience. It's like literally one of our core values here at Base Coat Marketing. And it holds true for any industry, any vertical. If you have an overwhelming customer experience, the results side of that doesn't mean as much.
Yeah, 100%. And the people listening to this saying, yeah, I'm a master painter. I've been painting this many years and I can paint circles around the comp. Okay, but nobody cares. Sorry, break it to you. I'm hurting some feelings and there's someone gripping their steering wheel while they're driving right now because they're so upset, but nobody cares. They're going to be you to paint their walls and their trim, and you better do a good job, right? That's the expectation. Okay, so you nailed the expectation. Now what can we do over and above that to actually make a difference in the eyes of the homeowner?
Also, I think we're arguing between owning a job and owning a business, right? Like if you are the best painter out there, great, you own a job. You cannot walk away from that. You can't go on vacation for 2 weeks. You can't scale that. You need scalable processes and systems to own a business. And that's really where that overwhelming customer experience comes into play.
Absolutely. So book the estimate.
Yeah, book the estimate.
Customer gets another confirmation email and text message. Hey, thanks for booking an estimate with Blueprint Painting. You're booked for this time. Click this link to see some before and after pictures, or click here to view our website. Just some sort of way to keep them engaged. I recommend a confirmation at the time, right when they book, 24 hours before, and then 1 hour before, both text and email on each of them. And then a pro tip that most people don't do, but is such an extra, like, what did you call that? Your customer service?
Overwhelming customer
service. If you or a marketing assistant of yours can drop off a pre-estimate package, a physical pre-estimate package at the homeowner's house the day before your estimate, this will blow them away. Now, all this has to be is like a manila envelope or a job folder, those glossy bifold job folders with like your image, like before and after logo with a couple of things inside. You can leave some paint swatches, an expectations document, like what's going to happen at the estimate, some before and after pictures, maybe some printed out customer reviews, and that's it. right? You print this out, it costs you $2. You have someone drop it off the day before their estimate. That will blow people away.
So that is fantastic. And I want to add one thing to that we do on the digital side, and that is presenting a picture of the person that's going to be knocking on their door. That human face interaction, or even a little about story about that person's family and why he's in this industry to begin with, that has that personalized touch where when they show up at that door, they know exactly who's going to be ringing their doorbell. And that just leads to that personalized relationship that you're looking to build during that entire sales process.
I just wrote that down on my list. I'm adding that. That's so good. Sweet. Yeah, never, there's always more to learn. That's what I love about this. You never know it all. Now we get to the estimate. So once you get to the estimate, now here's where the, traditional sales aspect will begin, right? So hopefully you did your setup effectively enough where both homeowners are there, right? And they have at least an hour set aside for this estimate. So I'm just going through my process, and I'll have like a bunch of like cheat sheets and downloads and video training that I'm actually giving all the listeners of this podcast for free. So if you go to paintergrowth.com/basecoat, you can get all of my resources, my sales process completely free.
Incredible.
Buy anything. So basically, you're going to show up exactly on time, right? Then the first thing that you're going to do is not talk about the project. The first thing that you're going to do is try to sit at that kitchen table, right? Say, hey, can we sit down for a minute? I want to discuss your project, but just like so we can sit down and chat for a couple minutes. Cool. All right. Now here you're going to ask a few important questions. Have you ever hired a contractor before? What was your experience? What's important to you when hiring a painter? Have you ever had a bad experience with a contractor? Is there anything unique about your job that we should know? And as you're asking these questions, you need to be writing down the answers because the answers to these questions are going to be the keys to what's going to allow you to close the job at the end. So if you're booking a job or a homeowner about a job, and they're telling you that all of their drapes are really important, imported from Italy or whatever, and you don't mention that on your proposal at the end of the job, you lost it. There's not a chance. But if they tell you about their drapes and you have a whole section in your proposal where it's like, customer has imported drapes from Italy, store in plastic bags on site in the garage, then reinstall according to, exactly how they were, when you took them down. If you have that written on the proposal, they're going to get there. And if the only time that they told you about those blinds is at the sitting at the kitchen table and then you brought it back, they're going to be like, wow, this person listens to me, right? It's huge. And then obviously you need a way to communicate that with your painter going to do the job, which is a whole nother conversation. But yeah, like that type of thing. You want to listen to those things that aren't necessarily paint related, because 9 out of 10 clients don't care what type of product you use. They don't know what Emerald is. They don't care if you use Benjamin Moore or Sherwin-Williams. This does not matter to them. What matters to them is, are you going to take care of their shit?
And the active listening, I think, is so important. And that is just listening to what they have to say. Don't over speak them. Don't talk over them. It's so important. Those little details can make the world of a difference.
Absolutely. So once you do that and you understand the scope and their timeline and anything unique about it, now you're going to do a walk around or a walk through. I call it a walk around if it's outside, a walk through if it's inside. And what you're going to do here is have the homeowner walk through their home, walk around their home if it's an exterior, and have them point out everything that they want painted. Don't just tell you that they want the siding and trim painted. Actually walk around and have them point it out. What this does is this gives you an opportunity to talk about your processes and potentially products as you're going through. It's like, oh, if you can see your window sills, you have some peeling paint here. So what we're actually going to do is we use carbide scrapers. We're going to scrape off all the sold paint. We're going to use 120 grit sandpaper. We're going to sand it down, brush it off, and then we're going to use a water-based primer. We're going to seal it, let that dry, and then do 2 full coats of semi-gloss paint. That's what we do in this situation. Any questions about that? So what you're doing, you're showing exactly what you're doing. You're flexing your muscle, and you're showing them that you're going to take care of their home, right? It's really cool to be able to actually like touch a homeowner's house in front, like with them, and share that experience, because you're going to really develop a lot of trust and rapport during that time.
Yeah. And I think one thing I wanted to nail down there is that we actually use a quote within base coat marketing. And that is, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And really what it ties into that is, you're explaining to them why why what you're doing is important, and the fact that you're an expert in this field. But then tying back to the details aspect of this, it's all about the fact that you care about them and what is most important to them. So allowing them to point these things out, it's critical. So you're walking around the house, you're walking through the house, talking about their project. What next?
I like to use assumptive language when I'm doing the walk around. Now, this is a small, like, psychological tip, but saying things like, you don't say things like, if we get the job, we're going to do this. It's like, when we're here, we're going to put our tools, right? We put our crew kit just like this, and here's where the box and the drop cloths will be. And we're going to put drop cloths right under your, the whole side of the house here, right? So anytime, once we start scraping all the paint's just going to fall on the drop cloth, and we'll be able to clean it up, leaving your yard beautiful. When we're here, we are going to be doing this process on this part of the house, right? Very assumptive, future-pacing language. And once you've gotten enough information, you're going to give them the expectation that you're going to go to your vehicle to write out the proposal and come back and present it to them. So, okay, Joanne, I'm going to go back to my car to write up your proposal. It should take me about 20 minutes or however long it's going to take you. Are you guys going to be available for me to come back and present the proposal to you? And then hopefully, they are, because you've set the expectation so far. And that's what you go do. You go to your vehicle, you write out the proposal, do any measurements that you need to do, be as detailed as you can, refer back to the previous notes, from your initial conversation, and write up that detailed proposal. And when you come to the price, this is just a thing that I recommend. Never give a round number. It's going to be $3,000. You want to give a specific number down to a penny, because that shows that more thought went into it. So instead of $3,000, maybe $3,048.12.
Yep.
Right? Because now it's like, oh, I'm not buying just a roundabout number where there's room for negotiation. There's actually time, thought, and attention that's gone into this price. So there is room for negotiation.
Yeah. And so if you walk away from the house without giving an estimate, you are working in the early 2000s, late 90s, right? We have so much technology today. There's so much training and documentation out there, guys. You need to be giving an estimate before you walk away from the house. It will cut your margins, or it'll cut your close ratio in half if you don't do that.
Mm-hmm. And it adds work you do at night. I've customers clients I talk to, and they're like, yeah, when I get home, I have a stack of estimates I need to tackle. And sometimes it's a week or two until I get back to them. Well, guess what? You're not winning that job. So what are you spending money on marketing for?
Yeah.
So go to the vehicle, write it up, and write a detailed proposal, right? We have a proposal template you can get for free that you can write up. It's a handwritten one. You can get a lot of digital ones as well. But again, paintergrowth.com/basecoat, get that template for free. But you really want to figure out what those important things are, right? Was it attention to detail? Was it job site cleanliness? Was it timeliness, being on time? Like, did they complain that all the previous contractors that they've hired, there was no communication, or they're always late, right? Write that in if that's important to them. Do they have pets? Are pets important? Do they have a dog? We want to make sure the dog doesn't get out. And then what I recommend if you're just doing the written proposal is write up your handwritten proposal on your template, and then just take a picture of it. So you have your digital copy, and then you give the homeowner the written copy.
Simple but effective. I love that.
Yeah, that's the best system, is the one that you're going to follow. And if it's super easy, then you're more likely to follow it.
Simple scales.
Then you want to knock lightly when you're coming back in. And one thing that I recommend doing is before, this is a little pro tip. You do this if you're comfortable, right? If you're a little bit more forward, you can definitely do this. So when you're setting the expectation with the homeowner that you're going to come back in and present the job, you can just ask, okay, Joanne, do you mind if I let myself in when I'm done writing the proposal? And so, who lets themselves into your house?
Family.
Your best friends and your family. So if you let yourself, by getting permission to let yourself into their home, you are now subtly reclassifying yourself from stranger and contractor to friend. And it actually works. Most people will say yes, they don't care. And then as you come in, you knock lightly, let yourself in and announce yourself. So you're not being sneaky or anything, but just that simple fact of having permission to open the front door without them explicitly being there is huge.
Great tip. So good.
Yeah. And now we're going to sit back at the kitchen table and discuss the details. So what I typically like to do is when I'm presenting my proposal, we have it in order. So we covered the proposal with a piece of paper and then go down line by line. So we start with the prep, the setup, the priming, the paint, the special considerations, and then we get to the price. So we uncover in the paper as we go. You can start with the price. You can open with the price and then work back on how you got there. That's totally fine. And then you want to do a trial close. So you're not going to go for the close right away. You really want to do a trial close before you officially ask for the job. So when you get to the price, you show it and you ask them, do you feel this is a fair price for the work that we're going to be doing for you? Right? So here, you're not saying, can I have the job? You're saying, do you feel this is a fair price for the work that we're going to do? Okay. Then they're going to say yes or no, right? If they say no, it's not. It's like, oh, now we have a price objection. We could talk for an hour about pricing objections, but basically, if you have a money objection, you need to separate it from, is it more than they're willing to pay? Meaning, is it just more than their budget is and they don't want to spend that much? Or do they think it's too expensive for the work that you're going to do? And so each one of those, segmenting those is really important because you tackle them differently. If it's more than they want to pay, but they see the value, now it's about breaking down the job into smaller pieces. Okay, well, what is your budget? How much do you want to spend? Maybe we can get rid of the bathroom for this project, or maybe we can, get rid of the hallway, or only do the bedrooms, or not do the closets, or whatever. Like piece it down so that it does fit their budget. Now, on the flip side, if they don't have the value, if they don't see that the value is there, meaning they think it's too expensive for the work that you're going to do, you either haven't built enough value or you've priced yourself too high. So to increase the value, a little tip that I like is really kind of explaining where you got this price from. Now, you don't have to explain your estimating method, but you can say, all right, you might be able to get this job cheaper. There's only 3 ways that someone can do this job for less. Number 1, they can pay their painters less. Now, I'd like to pay my painters fairly, above market rate, because I want to make sure that you have great people in your home. Okay. Number 2, they can use cheap products. I'm using top of the line, blah, blah, blah. These are the products. And I don't like to use cheap products. So we're using good products. And I expect you want good products in your home as well for increased durability. Or we can rush the job. We can get this job done in fewer hours, which means we're going to be cutting corners. Now, I don't think that you want cheap labor, cheap products, or a rush job. Do you? Okay, well, if you don't want any of those things, this is the price to complete this project properly.
Ask cheap or good. You can't have all 3. Pick 2.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, it's and as far as price objections go, I feel like that's where so many guys fail. They just look at that as like, it's a bad lead, it's myself out, or that's just, they don't have the right mindset. And it really comes down to your sales process. And there are so many things you can do from that point on. As you mentioned, you could spend an entire day or month talking about that.
Yeah.
But I would to just pause there for a moment, because I think that is honestly one of our biggest pain points with any time that we deliver a lead to a client. They're like, yeah, it was a bad lead. They were just, they didn't have the right budget in mind. It's like, all right, you have to nurture that. And we don't even talk about pricing at this point until you're in their house. You've walked through the whole project. You've presented them the estimate, and then we start dealing with that price objection. So are there any other tips or strategies that you can implement to help reduce the price objection or kind of skirt around the edge there?
Obviously, if you've done everything that we've mentioned already, you're on time, you're professional. I didn't mention at the start, like when you're showing up to an estimate, you really don't want, I recommend not being in painter whites, be clean, be well dressed. The better that you present yourself, the more value that they're going to think you deserve. Really, if you come in covered in paint, you just got off site, they're going to think you're going to price the job like a painter, not like a painting company, right? And that's not what we want. One way to disassociate the price with actually getting the job is by using a deposit and really presenting the deposit first. So, say, okay, so Miss Joanne or Miss Homeowner, however you like to, talk to your customers, the total price to get this entire job done with all of these things that we talked about, we already went through for the last 10 minutes. The entire price is $6,012.41. Now, all we need today is a 20% deposit to lock you in the schedule, and that's just $1,201. So how would you like to handle that deposit? So now you're not making them make a $6,000 decision. You're making them make a $1,200 decision. That's a lot easier to stomach.
Yep. And then on the back end of that, it's a smaller number there too. And, especially if you're booking them out a couple of weeks, they're going to have a paycheck or two between now and then. And that'd be a much more realistic number. So I think, price objections are so important to practice and to role play and to really nail that down so you feel confident and comfortable handling those. Because I think that's where, like I said, 95% of guys fail at that.
I mean, in our training, we have like a whole video series on handling the price objection. Like it's the cool thing about all of the problems that we as painting business owners face is that it's all been done before, right? We're not solving new problems. It's all been perfected to the nth degree. And now, as a business owner, it's your job to wade through all the crap and figure out what information you need to pay attention to and what information you need to ignore. And so that's like, that's really what you can find anything you want online for free. Everything that you want to learn is on Google somewhere, but you have to trade your time for wading through all that. And then you need to make a million decisions on, is this important? Is this valuable? Or is this not? Do I pay attention to this or do I get rid of it? And so that's kind of like what we do as a coaching business is we save you that time from having to wade through it and really curate specific systems and content so that you don't have to do all that. You just save time. Okay, here's number 1, here's number 2, here's number 3. I'm going to implement them all because they're all great and they've been proven, right? So that's really what you're getting with a coaching organization, is that collaboration so that you're not having to spend hours and hours and hours figuring out which direction to go. Is this a good YouTube channel? Is this a bad YouTube channel? And then YouTube got rid of the thumbs down thing too. So you can't even see if it's not popular. That's just a little side rant.
Yeah, no. Yeah. And I think Jason Phillips says you can avoid paying the dumb tax by hiring a coach, right?
Perfect.
And
yeah.
I invest in coaching, right? And it's because it works. It's how it's the cheat code to life. It's how you sidestep all of those potholes and get to where you're going from, point A to point B as quickly as you possibly can.
So I have a client, and I classify him now as a friend. He is a nationally ranked Brazilian jiu-jitsu martial artist, right? So he comes on the national level and purple belt, and he wins tournaments, and like he's very, very hot there. And so I asked him one day, I said, where would you be in Brazilian jiu-jitsu without coaching? Coach. He's like, dude, that's not even a question. Like, I'd be a white belt. I'd be getting my butt kicked in every single match, right? Because you just so much to learn. There's the technique, there's the moves, there's the subtleties, there's the repetition. There's so much to learn in something like BJJ that to become a master, if you don't have a coach, it's not just improbable, it's impossible, right? So why is there a disconnect between sports like that and business? Whereas most business owners don't think that they need a coach just because it's business. It's the exact same as if you went into a BJJ gym with no coaching, and just imagine going to that gym every single day and just going up against opponents who get coaching, and just every single day. And you're hopefully you're learning every time you get your ass kicked, but you just keep going in every single day. It's like, maybe I should have a coach. Maybe that would make this a little bit easier. And then you start doing some coaching, and then you start learning some moves, and you start kicking butt way faster. Like, well, which way would you prefer?
I totally agree. It makes so much sense to take the fast track, invest in yourself. There's nothing better that you can invest in than your personal growth. And being a business owner, being a leader, not owning a job, but owning a business, it's the cheat code to life. I cannot recommend it enough. So, Mike, we've gone through a long sales process here. What are we missing on the back end of that? Is there any other bullet points on that long list of yours that you would like to touch on here?
The thing, so like having a great sales process is great, but as long as it all relies on you, steps are going to get missed. You're going to get busy. You're going to forget to do the setup call. You're going to show up a couple minutes late. The pre-estimate package isn't going to get dropped off. If it relies on you, it's going to get messed up. I tell my team all the time, like I'm a pretty on it guy. Like I'm, I can stay on top of a lot, but I tell my team, if you're assigning something to me, like it has to be in my calendar or it is not getting done. Right. It's just, I've too much on the go, and I recognize that. And I let my team know that. So the expectation is there, right? The same expectation should be with you. You need to start building your company and doing these things with the mindset in mind of one day, I'm not going to be the one doing this. Okay. So how do you get started with creating systems? It's easier than you think. People are so scared of systems, but it's so easy. Okay. Here's how you do it. And again, templates on all of this for free, paintergrowth.com/spacecoat. Step 1, open up a Google Doc. Step 2, write down a list of all of the things you do in a certain process. So we're talking about the sales process right now. Write down a list of just every single thing that you do and be as detailed as you can. Okay, New lead comes in, they get the text message. I do the setup call. Here's the outline. We send the estimate package. Here's how we find their address. Here's how, like literally be as detailed as you can. Think if you were in 3rd grade reading this, could you do it effectively? That's how detailed you want to be. Okay. Then step 3 is pick which one of those things is going to be easiest for you not to do first. So say the pre-estimate package, right? Say this is one thing that you can easily disconnect from the rest of the sales process. You can have somebody else do. Okay, let's figure out now how we can automate this and get ourselves out of it so it happens every single time. I wrote a little step-by-step on how to do it for this specific one. So if you have a marketing assistant or some sort of assistant, some sort of help, some other person that's not you in your business, then you can get this done right away. Okay, so earlier, we were talking about Zapier, ZR. As soon as an estimate gets booked, all you do is automate an email to this assistant, to this marketing person that says, please drop off a pre-estimate package at this address, write this name on the front, and do it by this time. And then it's done. And then you teach them how to do it. You give them the estimate packages. And now every time you book an estimate, that email or that text goes to your marketing person. And now that's their responsibility.
Never have to do it again.
And that's a system that you just put in your company, and now it's done. Like, sure, you might need to make sure they still have estimate packages, but now as you find more and more systems, you can maybe teach them how to build the estimate packages, teach them how to go to Staples, and then all they have to do is submit an invoice to you for expense reimbursement, right? You can keep going a step further. I say all the time that your ability, this is my quote. This is like my quote of my business. So write this down. One day I want someone to quote me on this. Your ability to scale your business is limited only by your ability to delegate more and more complex tasks. Okay, so your ability to scale your business is limited only by your ability to delegate more and more complex tasks.
Couldn't agree with that more.
You got painting, hire a painter, delegate it. You got sales, hire a salesperson, delegate it. But now, once you start having to delegate things like leadership and these other like administrative things that might just be quicker for you to do than to delegate, your business is going to stop growing, right? I'm hitting right now in my business where I'm getting too busy and I need to start delegating some of the higher level things that I'm doing, but I'm hitting a ceiling. So I'm working very intensely with my coach to help me level this up because I recognize this weakness. So if you're recognizing a weakness where you're like, hey, I don't know how to delegate this thing. I mean, okay, you can learn though. It's not super hard, but it is a skill that you need to learn.
Couldn't agree more. Whenever it comes to SOPs, and one other thing I'll add to that is AI. So I don't want to go too far down this rabbit hole, but whenever it comes to building out processes and SOPs, a lot of people fail at that because it's a bear or a burden to have to type all that out, right? And remember every single step in the process. But a lot of guys have no issues just talking about it. And what we've learned is creating a video or doing text to speech on your phone, creating an entire process from that, just talking about it, right? Plopping that into something like ChatGPT and asking it to summarize this into a bulleted SOP with headings and bullets. And it'll spit out something that's relatively close to where you need it to be, roughly like 90-95% of the way there. And then you might need to spend 2-3 minutes vetting that. And then you're done. And again, you never have to do that ever again. Once you delegate that, that's off your plate forever. It's amazing.
Yeah, there's a lot of ways to do that. If you can record yourself doing it if it's an online thing. If it's an in-person thing, literally just like throw a phone recorder or like have someone video you doing it. It might seem a little bit awkward, but it's important. And there's tons of AI tools out there that'll support you with that. I try not overwhelm people with, because even like using the term AI can overwhelm a lot of people if they're not super familiar with it. But yeah, lots of great tools to help you out. And if you ever get stuck, just whoever's listening to this, you guys have a ton of resources. Like reach out to me, reach out to Austin, reach out to Tanner or whoever else. And just like ask, like we'll happily give you free advice on any of this stuff if you just ask. But we like there's so many people going through the exact same issues and problems and tribulations that you are. But if you don't ask, if you don't express it, if you just stay locked in your little bubble of your business and you don't reach out, you're not going to get support.
I think the best way to summarize this entire call is don't reinvent the wheel and delegate. Develop a process for everything that you do. The sales process we just described is brilliant. There's a lot of hacks in there. And this is just, in my opinion, the tip of the iceberg too. I know you have a ton of resources on your end, Mike, that a lot of guys can take advantage of. I know personally, because we have clients in your program who have succeeded brilliantly from all of that. So with that said, Mike, I do appreciate you diving into all this today. Is there anything else on your end that you would like to touch on here before I open it up to you to talk about how people can maybe take advantage of your program if they're interested in discussing what a coaching program looks like for their company?
Sure. One last thing. When you're saying delegate, a big shortcoming, but a problem, that's not it. Anyway, an issue that people frequently come into when they create a system to delegate is that they'll try to delegate before they do it. So we say, do the thing, get the result, and then systemize it. So for example, if you wanted to set up like door-to-door marketers for your company, right? It's a controversial topic, but say that's the one that you want to set up. It makes sense in this example. And you hire a door-to-door person to go themselves, and you're just expecting them to be successful, and you're just hoping that they'll be successful. That's going to fail before it even gets off the ground because you haven't proven the process. You need to do it yourself. You need to get the reps. You need to build the process from success, and then you can systemize it and scale it. It's the only way.
Yep. And when you get to a certain level, you hire leaders, you train them, and then they can work on that delegation. But you're absolutely correct. You have to be the one to own that process before you hand it off to somebody else, or else it will fail every single time.
Exactly. So, I mean, what I do, we have kind of two paths based on where you are, kind of like the 500K and less path and the 500K and more path. So if you're doing less than 500K a year, we have a way to really help get you started with systems, started with scaling your marketing, very proven process. We've had over 350 painting contractors go through our program. And we have, group coachings, tons of support, all the templates, all the resources. But you don't even need any of that because I'm giving you a whole bunch of stuff for free right now, paintergrowth.com/basecoat. So you can get a taste to see if you want to check out the full stuff. And then our advanced program is really if you're doing more than 500K and you want to scale to 1 or 2 or 3+ million, we call it our freedom program. And this is more one-on-one coaching. We have 4 very, very experienced coaches who've all ran multi, 7 and 8 figure painting businesses. And we basically really help you scale up on a one-on-one model there. And so you have a call with us. We can see what makes sense for you, if anything. And if not, we can point you in the direction of who can help you best. But regardless, I want to give you that first taste for free. Really great. I'm really proud of the toolkit that I put together for this. So yeah, check it out. And if that's as far as you go with us, then that's wonderful.
So good. So Mike, again, I appreciate your time today. I have you on this podcast because you are not only a friend of mine, but somebody that I trust recommending. Guys, if you haven't seen Mike on Instagram, by the way, I don't know, you guys might be living under a rock. You're everywhere, man. So again, I appreciate you taking the time out of your busy day to jump on here and provide value. That's ultimately what we're all in this for. So Mike, before I let you go, is there any other last insight or last greatest thing that you want to scream from the mountaintop that if every painting business owner was doing this today, that they can instantly improve their life and their business tomorrow?
Yes, actually. And it's the sexiest thing in business.
Yes.
Priority management. Be in control of your time and your priorities. How do you do this? So if you don't know how to time block, you can probably just YouTube some videos on time blocking. We have a ton of training on it internally, but basically learn how to use a Google Calendar or an Apple Calendar and block your time. Prioritize high impact activities. So try to delegate the low impact things. You should not be, if you're doing more than 30K a month, you should not be picking up paint. You should not be moving ladders between sites. Find ways to delegate those low impact tasks to your team, stick to your schedule, and then also block out project time, right? So sales and marketing is super, super valuable, is 10 times more valuable. So block out time to spend on sales and marketing, to spend on recruiting every single week, because that's the only way that you're going to move your business forward, is if you can spend a lot of dedicated time on recruiting and sales and marketing.
Brilliant. And with that, we're out.